Byron York is chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner. A.B. Stoddard, associate editor at Real Clear Politics, and Matt Schlapp is a contributor with The Hill. Byron, your thoughts on this and this ratcheting up of tension that we've seen in recent days?
Well, I mean, it appears that they're saber rattling, but it also appears that they keep messing up. And I think you're absolutely right about this will heighten speculation that the United States sabotaged this in some way. If it was a failure, that the United States had something to do with that failure. Clearly, after this happened a week ago, Trump administration officials were asked about it, and they kind of grinned and said, "We can't talk about it." And of course, no one confirmed it, but they really didn't give you the impression that they were directing you away from that conclusion anyway. So clearly, it's going to bring much more speculation that the United States is actually playing an active role in sabotaging this.
Hey, but here's the Secretary of State yesterday, something he reiterated today.
Pyongyang's missiles can now go in any direction, and this is a threat that is now moving out of the region and is becoming global. We were unwilling to negotiate our way to the negotiating table, and I think that's the mistakes of the past.
How long is the U.S. willing to wait?
Well, we've got to see a real change on the part of the posture of the regime in North Korea. Now, how do we see that? Well, we'll wait as long as it takes, as long as the threat is manageable.
Isn't that a version of strategic patience?
We will know it when we see it.
So is this it? Is this knowing it when you see it, this test that in the face of the U.S. paying very close attention, AB, to what North Korea is doing?
Well, I think that the president made some, strange, dramatic comments last night in an interview saying that we could be headed towards a, quote, major conflict with North Korea. According to Maggie Haberman of the New York Times, who has very good West Wing sources, he just said it on his own, and it wasn't really the policy of the administration. And, of course, on the world stage in an official capacity today, Tillerson repeated much of what he said to you last night and talked about there is an opening. Even though Vice President Pence said we're not going to negotiate with them, we can talk to them. As long as they're going to change their posture and dismantle their nuclear program, there is an opening where we will not topple their regime and we will work with them. That is a new tune that our government is singing, but there were strong words about really trying to quash any economic opportunity for them worldwide, and we would work with all of our allies, and we would be punishing those who defied us. And of course, right, back in the crosshairs here is China. So I think after the test today, we'll see the administration, go back to China, and we're waiting for a signal from them that's really substantive. Not just did you stop a coal shipment, but are you on board with missile defense in South Korea? Are you going to stop sanctions against businesses in South Korea? To come to the table. We keep hearing from the White House, Brett, that the Chinese are being really helpful, but no one's giving us a lot of examples. So if the Chinese are the ones who have to take care of this, I think we need to hear from the Chinese.
Yeah, Matt, speaking of sanctions, I mean, North Korea is one of the most heavily sanctioned countries in the world already. You have here in the U.S. the House Majority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, saying that the House would hold a vote on sanctions next week to go after North Korea's shipping industry and those who employ North Korean labor abroad. How much can be done without China being integral?
Nothing. And I think that's what President Trump has realized. Brett, presidents get mugged by reality after they come off a campaign with a lot of rhetoric. And you realize that the presidency you want to have is often interrupted by the facts on the ground, and oftentimes it's national security. Remember, George W. Bush wanted to be the education president and have a humble foreign policy, and then we were attacked viciously. And I think what President Trump is realizing is that you can be on offense politically and try to push an agenda, but international conflict comes in the way. And the problem with North Korea and the two predecessors in the White House is they all came to the same conclusion, is there's really no way to do this without China. And I think that's why you're seeing President Trump have a different type of rhetoric when he talks about China as a currency manipulator, when he talks about China vis-a-vis trade and TPP. He is now trying very hard to prod them in the right direction, and it really is our best hope.
Byron, this is the South Korean foreign minister at the UN.
History tells us how in the first half of the 20th century, the failure to counter Nazi ambitions led to the outbreak of the Second World War. If we do not respond to North Korea's repeated provocations in a resolute manner now, will only further feed the appetite of the trigger-happy regime in Pyongyang.
I mean, they're worried, obviously, but at the same time, President Trump is talking about squeezing South Korea on South Korea's trade deal.
He is, and you know, to go back to something that AB mentioned, where the president said that we could be headed for a major conflict with North Korea. You know, I would imagine that the voting public's reaction to that is, what? Where's that coming from? If the president does intend to pursue some major course of action on this, just as if he intended to pursue follow up the missile attack in Syria. I mean, the administration has to seriously try to prepare the American people for taking some sort of action. Right now, this does appear, some of it, to be coming off the top of the president's head, and the public, if they're going to support actual action that puts American troops in harm's way, is going to want to know a lot more.
AB, you agree?
I do, and that's why I think that what President Trump has made clear all along during his campaign and has remained consistent is that it's all on the Chinese. I mean, he's been saying that, you know, since the 80s. This is how you take care of these maniacs in North Korea. It's the Chinese's problem, and we're going to stop taking our lumps of coal from the Chinese ourselves and make them do something about the North Koreans. We know that the Chinese have an interest not in the implosion of North Korea, but in sort of the maintenance of the status quo there. So I'm sure those conversations are going on behind the scenes, but Ryan's right. People are not prepared for us to, you know, we have troops in South Korea. We have allies in Japan and South Korea. We have to protect, but also really what is our vested interest in a proactive military attack on the North Koreans? I think that the administration, with their differing voices, need to come together and stop sending mixed signals to Americans, let alone overseas. So with Pence saying last week, we're not going to talk anymore to the North Koreans, and now Tillerson saying, we want to talk to you, and Trump talking about a major conflict, I think people, it makes them very anxious, and I think they need to sing from the same, you know, tune. They need to be consistent, not only because the Chinese, the South Koreans, and the Japanese and others in the region need to hear it, but I think that Byron makes a very strong point. The voters here need to hear it as well.
Yeah. Just one clarification on this particular missile. The KN-17 is a single-stage liquid-fueled missile, not the three-stage solid-fueled missile that North Korea tested successfully back in February. That caused a lot more concern. We will continue to monitor this breaking news. Coming up, this is day 99 of the President Trump with Martha McCallum. You'll see that at 7 p.m. tonight. We're back with the panel, Matt, AB, and Byron. Matt, your thoughts on this 100 days and how the administration has kind of been rolling out this rollout?
Look, it's a bit uneven. After 110 days, no one's going to be talking about the first 100 days. I think the more accurate barometer, which actually President Obama talked about, is what gets done by the August recess. Everybody needs to focus on that. By the time we get to the August recess this year, that is the most fertile territory for a president to get stuff that he needs through Congress done. And then once you get through August, we're almost going to be done with the end of the year. And next year, it's all politics. President Trump has one accomplishment he must achieve, or he's going to be in big trouble. People have to feel like the economy is growing and that they have more take-home pay and that they see their economic prospects going improving. If he can accomplish that, that is the most important thing to get done.
But let's be honest. AB, his biggest accomplishment was Neil Gorsuch on the U.S. Supreme Court. And no matter what else happens, there will be a lot of conservatives who say, this is it.
Right. I mean, we've seen polls all week about how Trump's base is solidly with him. There are no regrets. 96% of them have no regrets. They think he's doing a great job. They have high hopes for him. They believe he needs more time. He's learning on the job. All positive. The social conservatives that were very wary of Trump are thrilled. He was at the NRA today talking about Second Amendment rights. He nominated and got confirmed Neil Gorsuch on the court. They are thrilled about that. That's very unifying. I think the stark decrease in border crossings is a huge accomplishment. Trump inflated the numbers today and said it was 73%. I think 61 or 64, which are figures I'd seen, are staggering. But that is also, you know, opening up pipelines, rolling back regulations. These are things that are positive. I think for people who voted for Hillary or don't like Trump, and they're not necessarily one and the same, his cabinet that is trusted by both Democrats and Republicans, certain members, the Department of Defense Secretary James Mattis and others who are handling this North Korea and Syria conflicts, I think are making people feel comfortable that he's consulting with the right people, and they're not really defining a long-term strategy yet, but they're trying. And I think that's really important to other voters who didn't support Trump.
Byron, quickly.
Well, in late October, Trump goes to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, hands out a formal contract with the American voter. The front page is promises of things he's going to do using his executive authority as president. Back page are bills he's going to introduce in Congress. If you look at it today, the front page actually looks pretty good. He's done a lot of what he said he would do in terms of regulation, in terms of TPP and border, and a lot of other things. Back page, not so good.
All right, that's it for the first hour. Thank you, panel.